Welcome to Kiss the Reviews. I'm Armando. Corey's here, and we also have a couple of guests with us today. We have Michael La Gattuta and George Massimillo, and they are with the review that we had done before on Waning Poetic. George was the director, and Michael is the producer, correct?
And yep.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you for having us on.
No
And
problem. Thanks for.
I have to interrupt everyone right away because Armando loves to discredit writers of all kinds. So it is important that we note that George also wrote this film.
That is correct.
Thank
correct.
Son of a bitch.
They forget about that side of it, you know.
Writing is important.
Yes, it is.
Writing is important.
A little bit.
We're the real heroes.
Yeah. But if you want to follow the show, you can follow Kiss the Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and I'll leave it to you guys for if people want to follow you guys on any social media. I'll throw it over to you to intro all that stuff.
The movie's at Waning Poetic Movie, and then we have GMML Films or Right One Productions. Any of those. And if you really want to find our personal stuff, I'm sure you can find us on there somewhere. But those are the important ones, you know?
There you go. Well, we obviously watched the movie Waning Poetic. We did the review. Hopefully you guys weren't too pissed after seeing the review. We both really enjoyed the film. I'm going to throw it over to Corey just because Corey always kicks these off, so I'll give it to Corey to start off the questions.
Yeah, some real gotcha journalism coming at you, boys. Hope you're ready. George, the first thing, obviously, I was looking at your IMDb page, as we sometimes pretend to do research on this show, and I saw that obviously tons of writing credits going back, directing credits. Going back to like 2009. I saw you're from Long Island. Your last film, It's Love Bro, has won tons of awards at multiple festivals. So I guess my question, and again, being from Long Island and Italian, is why you think you better than me? No.
I'll pass that to Mike.
I'm not even sure what the question is. I'm not sure what that question is.
Yeah, I can't stand other people's success. I had to get that out. No, my first real question is what got you? What got you started writing? A lot of your films are romantic comedies, and I'm just curious what got you into that genre specifically, and what got you into writing overall.
I always wanted to write. It was a lot easier to write a script than actually go out and make it. So I've obviously got a little bit more experience in that on that side of it. You know, I wish I could film everything I made as soon as I'm done writing it. But I just always wanted to write and loved movies. You know, my family would probably just sit me in front of the TV and put on Star Wars, so I shut up on a VHS tape. And but I loved it. It was it was the best thing for me. So growing up in the 80s, watching all those movies as a kid that shouldn't have been watching movies like I was, and always wanted to get there, you know?
I love it. What got you into the romantic comedy side of things?
I would say a comedy. I love, like Brothers McMullen, Clark's, like those movies, as far as like actually being able to do it inspired me as much as anything else. But also, those are the movies you can do, It's, as long as you can get the comedy side of it, it's kind of easier to pull that off with no money than an action movie or a big time drama or sci-fi or something, or horror movie even. So it was almost by necessity, even though I definitely do love those films. Obviously, I keep going with them, and inspired by Rodney Dangerfield movies and everything. Try to, lean more towards that type of comedy when I can. But
I love it. I'm sorry, Armando. I got to ask one question because George brought this up, and I will shut up. You brought up Clerks, and I have to make a correction from our from our review of Waning Poetic, because I had made a comment about the dialogue and being so similar to like the Letterkenny's dialogue. And honestly, thinking about it now, not quite so drugged up as I am most of the time, this really reminded me of your dialogue, and just the way it was filmed reminded me a lot of a Kevin Smith film.
Yeah, he's I think probably for everybody, but especially in the Northeast New York, New Jersey area, I think we all kind of were. I don't even know how old I was when the first Clerks came out, but I was too young to really be thinking about actually making movies. But my cousin explaining to me that this guy made a movie at his job. I was, you can just do that. So that was in my head for a while before we made our first film, Enjoy Yourself. But
Well,
It
and
definitely shows.
no, it really does. And it did have that Clerks feel to it. I just want to jump out and say, first, I want to apologize to Sophia, who plays Ella. In the review, we obviously slammed the character, obviously not her, but she played that part extremely well. And that character was, it definitely elicited a certain reaction from me. I would assume the entire audience that will come out to see it. But the when you're writing one of these movies, do you have, and I know like you've worked with Thaddeus in the past, Honest Love Bro, do you have those characters like, oh, I think this person would be perfect for that? Do you hold casting calls for this? How did that work out?
yeah, no, definitely always hold auditions. Teddy obviously worked on the last film, so we definitely for Ryan basically. And I think Mike, that might be the first time I've ever done that. It's just yeah,
Um,
that's for Teddy.
I think so. Yeah,
And
yeah. He
yeah,
actually brought him in to read with the auditioning actors and actresses, and we actually did it at the location we filmed the movie. Before we filmed the
yeah.
movie, we did auditions at the South Shore Theater in Lindenhurst, and then like I don't know when you decided to like, hey, maybe we should shoot here, but just kind
Yeah,
of
at
worked
some
it.
point the logistics of it came together through that. Because Teddy is actually one of the owners there, so he that worked out well for us. But it is always I always make sure we do auditions, see as many people as possible, and sometimes you see too many, but
We used to do
you
them
got to
in
get it. Yeah. What
we
was
used to
that?
do we used to do them in Manhattan, and
Yeah,
that was like so many people. I remember seeing so many people some of those days, just
yeah,
tons of
probably
people that will
hundreds
never
in
come
in
out
a
to Long
day
Island.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all
So,
the places after COVID seem to have closed down that we used to use, so we just
mm,
did them on Long Island, the last two films, and we got tons of great people, thank God, and found the right ones for the right roles. But Sophia,
oh, 100%.
she's great. She's tough too. She but she's got a great sense of humor, so she I think she appreciated some of the comments. We had
Well,
a conversation somewhat early on that it was like, you're the bad guy, right?
Right.
Oh, alright. Okay, I can do that.
No,
yeah,
she did a
the
fantastic job. I ran out, and I'm actually going to try and find what is Night of the Harvest
yeah.
Yeah,
that
I
she's
actually have
in.
not seen that yet, but yeah, that was, right before actually, while we were filming, I think they had the screening for that, the premiere for
Oh,
that, so
fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah, and the one rule we have on the show, like we obviously like to take a lighthearted approach to and make fun of some of the situations versus like the actors. The one rule is they could do it 10 times better than we could. That's why we're doing this and they're doing that. But anytime an actor or an actress can make me feel a certain way, whether it's I hate that character, I love that character, this one's funny. That's how I know they did their job at the end of the day. Um,
Exactly.
and with that, like as far as the collaboration went, like, and I know you wrote the script, I know you directed it, so you have your hand in all of it. What was the collaboration process like with the actors? How much did they stick to the written word on the script versus ad lib? Do you let them kind of run a little bit?
there's a couple words that weren't in the script, but for the most part, they stuck to it. There's a couple things that we did add but they were good about that. We kind of, you know, I wrote it, so it's always like, I wrote that for a reason. I use that
Yeah.
word for a reason.
Right.
But
Yeah.
they all got the characters too. It was we had some fun. I sent them, and don't ask me what movies it was, but I sent them like a couple movies that kind of set the tone for the generation that they were playing. I made them playlists of music from those things, just as a fun little thing to get them into that time period. So, but they all got it. It's almost stereotypical of those years too. So,
Yeah.
you kind of have an understanding of it to begin
There
with.
was some improv lines in there, but not a lot. Like I remember the one with Ryan talking about the video store.
Oh yeah,
Oh
That was
yeah.
we
I don't
improvised.
remember what the original line was, but yeah, no, worked out much better with
Yeah,
That
just
was
some
did a
great.
lot.
talk
That
at
was
the
a
video
funny.
store that gets rid of my late fees.
That was a great exchange. Mike, how did you and is it Mike or Michael? Which do you prefer?
Either or.
Okay.
My
Uh,
blame.
Mike, how did you and George end up hooking up together? I mean, have you guys been friends for a long time? Was it just a random encounter?
George actually messaged me on MySpace, and
MySpace.
yeah,
2005, and he used to like list what people did, and his said cinematographer. Like, hey,
uh,
want to make a
so
movie?
I was shooting like really low budget horror movies that never got finished, and he was messaging me. I was like, all right, I guess I can go meet up with this guy, and so we just kind of went to a Dunkin' Donuts and we started working on something. What was it called? Was it a baseball movie?
First, we didn't even finish the first.
No.
It took us a little while to get the ball rolling, but we made Enjoy Yourself a few years later.
Nice. Nice. And so we've talked with a couple other producers before, but what's your experience with, and I don't mean, obviously you had the low budget horror films, things like that, Mike, but what made you get into the producing side of it? And what is that like for you collaborating with directors, writers? What is exactly your role in the mix?
In this movie or in general?
Just in general, or in this movie, even.
On this movie, I was a producer, editor, special effects, sort of,
Okay.
sort of grip, and but in general, the producing that I do is a lot more creative than money wise. I don't really handle money.
Okay.
That's not me. The best thing that I like to do is I like to see a low budget movie and then put it up a notch. You know what I mean? Like, oh, here's the movie. Let's sweeten it up. You know what I mean? Let's put, I don't know, this in the front. Let's put this in the back. Let's add a song. You know what I mean? Let's just really get this to the next level. So I think that's where what I like to do on movies the most. Just kind of, especially when editing. You know what I mean? I'll see the edit and I'm like, oh, we can do better. We can do more and more. The last movie I think I just did, I did that too, but we did location wise. We found an office, my friend's office. So location wise, I kind of like to, especially when you're writing, you want to like map out the locations that are available to you, and especially it's a low budget movie. That's the first thing I always start with. I don't know about you, George, but the first thing I start with is like, okay, what can we get now? Like a yoga room? Can we get an office? You can get a house, you can get an apartment. Anyone's business that's someone you know. So I usually start there with locations, and then that I kind of build upon that. So yeah, but mostly creative wise, producer.
That's fantastic. No, that's totally different than
in post instead of normally.
Finding the location for Waning Poetic, was this a school you already knew, or you just call schools up and ask if you could shoot?
Well, we knew Teddy. Teddy that plays Ryan in the movie. He actually owns the South Shore Theater where we filmed, and that's where we did auditions. And so it kind of just fell in our lap. Where like I think George went to me and he said, he's like, "What if we just shoot here and we just move things around?" So all the stuff there basically was there, right, George? Like the lockers were there.
Yeah.
I think we brought in some stuff. Did we bring in some stuff? We brought in boxes.
Yeah, some of the boxes and things like that. Some garden equipment.
And
I
we
think
moved
we
things
brought
around.
in.
Like, it was tighter, and so yeah, I mean it worked out. I don't know. I think it did.
We
Yeah,
were trying to film in a school, but that gets very complicated. It was getting very complicated and ballooning the budget, and that's when we had that discussion while we were doing the auditions. Wait a minute, I think we're in the school right now. This will
Yeah,
work.
No, it
The-
definitely worked out.
yeah,
As far as so you get in, you obviously find the location, you shoot the film, editing's done. You're like, hey, this is ready to for release, and it's does it come out in July or August?
We should be having. It's not official yet, but we'll have the like world premiere sometime this summer, and
Okay,
then go from
so
there.
in filmmaking, the one thing that's always interested me, especially in 2024, is how incredibly difficult it is, especially with streaming services. Studios are they're kind of holding onto their purse strings a little bit, and they're like, well, we don't want to produce that, we don't want to have a big theatrical release. Is it as an independent filmmaker, is it easier or harder with like the rise of streaming to get that like mass distribution to the people that the movie's intended for?
Think we assumed that it would be easier, but it's not. It's
yeah.
everything kind of just disappears. That's what I. It's Love Bro, our last film. Now we're talking about, we're done with film festivals. We have probably a couple more screenings this summer in the city and a couple other places. But it's like, where are we gonna put it now? What are we gonna do? Talk to distributors, do all this stuff, and I just feel like it gets lost when it goes out there. So, I've been happy. We were lucky enough to have quite a few of our own screenings with the Club Bro on top of the film festivals, and you know, I feel like I got more. You get more audience appreciation from those than somebody that turns it on. Your aunt's friend turns it on for 30 seconds, looks on Facebook while it's on, then the movie's over. It's like, oh, that was nice, and then just walks away. So,
in
it's
the
a
theater,
tough, weird time.
yeah, in the
Yeah.
theater, you know that you have their attention at least.
We'll
No,
be
Yeah.
streaming,
absolutely.
someday with It's Love Bro and for before Waning Poetic, but we're in the middle of, and there's some other producers involved with that, so we're in the middle with them trying to just figure out what next step with that is. It's all very saturated. Streaming, film festivals, everything is everybody's making movies. You can make a movie on your phone if you want. There's a lot to get lost in. It's difficult to find your audience. It's difficult for studios to find their audiences these days. So
No, absolutely. Well, and especially with because the one thing I really enjoyed about Waning Poetic was the everybody loves the originality. There's a lot of remakes nowadays, and it's going back to the studios. It's like we need to know what's going to make money, so yeah, let's remake the Fall Guy or whatever. Um, with this and with independent films in general, I really appreciate the originality. Where did the idea for Waning Poetic come from?
it was, you know, the easiest film to make is in one room, theoretically, you know? So it was
Yeah,
always in my head was how can you make The Breakfast Club for somebody now and keep them interested? Because that movie came out now, it'd probably go on Netflix and nobody would watch it. I hope
Yeah.
not,
yeah.
but that's probably the reality of it. So I tried to figure out that hook, and I'm always writing. So that was always just like one of those things every year or two I would put a couple notes on a file and come back to, and eventually it was just I want to film something right after It's Love Bro. I don't want to wait. Sometimes the bigger movies waiting for money and everything will take forever. So let's get this movie in. So I had basically the idea of it. Throw the time stuff in instead of the jock and the geek and the preppy all learning about each other. You can kind of have all these different generations. I work in restaurants a lot, so watching the 60-year-old guy talking to the high school kid about things, and it's like they're speaking different languages. So that was kind of inspiring for that side of it, and then just throw it all together and got that eventually.
Is
That was
that Oh, sorry, Corey. I got one
That's
more.
okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh,
As far as the process goes, because I'm always about process, and you mentioned like you just little bits and pieces. Is that are you constantly writing? Like, is that something that you'll work on something for a bit, walk away from it, go work on something else?
Yeah, I'm always writing something. I'm always working on something. So if I hit a wall on one script, I jump and outline another one. So I had a few bad days with this script. Let me outline this other one, and a year later, I'm back to that. And yeah, and it also depends on production wise. I did write Waning Poetic, right before we filmed it, so I didn't have the script done, but the idea had always been sitting there for when the time was right or when I felt that I needed to write it. So it all just kind of came together. But I am always writing something. I'm always working, even if, like I said, even if it's just outlining or rewriting. I did a revision on a script I wrote. I thought it was a few months ago. It was like 3 years ago already when I when I looked at the date on it. I did last week. So I'm always trying to keep busy. Obviously, Mike and I were editing a lot. We finished right before Valentine's Day filming, and we had our friends and family screening on March 10th, 11th, something like that.
I
Am I
forget.
there? Yeah, sometime in March. So it was a very quick. I'm sorry, May, not March. It was
It was a quick
a
turnaround.
3 month turnaround. So Mike and I were locked in editing for a lot. So I didn't get too much writing done, but squeezing in a couple hours here and there.
a couple things to go back on. One, when you're talking about your idea, you had the idea for Waning Poetic before really getting the full script done. Can you sell? And I guess this is a question for both of you, Mike as the producer and uh, uh, George as a writer and director. Can you sell an idea, or is it always like I have to have this script done, or can you concept it out and basically sell
I
that?
would. Well, in some cases I would, but I think everybody, Mike, I think you could agree, everybody in this business has their own ideas. Like everybody's so afraid of
Yeah.
getting their stuff stolen. Meanwhile, if I asked somebody to read my script, they probably would send me theirs before they read mine. So, it's tough. And they're not buying spec scripts in Hollywood anymore. I forgot, if
Right.
you look it up, they used to buy hundreds a year. Now there was like 4 sold last year. So it's a difficult it's always been difficult. Just, things change now.
Sure.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I haven't even thought about pitching anything to anyone. You know what I mean? We kind of like, I think of an idea and I'm not as big of a writer as George is. George is always writing. I was just at a coffee shop with him today and he was writing something. I don't know what he was writing. His manifesto. But I don't know. I mean, I'm running a script that's like 20 pages right now and I have a hard time getting through it. So, I can't imagine, pitching a whole thing to someone. It must be really tough.
Yeah,
Well,
that
we've done our pitch decks
We've
and
done
everything
pitch
for
decks.
investors,
Yeah, yeah,
for
that's right.
for that side of
We
it.
have
It's
done like
sure.
PDF. Yeah.
And my other question, going back to what you had said earlier about the cast and giving them some, movies to watch from their era, giving them some music from the era for the character they were playing to get into that mode. And obviously, every decade has everything going on in it. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s all had tumultuous moments and political big things happening. Was that intentionally left out so the overall message you guys were getting at the end, and I'm not going to spoil what that message is for everybody who hasn't been able to see the movie yet, but were you worried about that drowning out, or was that just not even of interest, just not the movie you were making?
You mean the weightier side of those
Yeah,
decades?
exactly. I'm not
Yeah,
trying to box anybody into a political conversation.
yeah.
I'm just curious because I tend to go that route sometimes, and my editors are like, "Hey, guy, pump the brakes a little bit. This isn't a manifesto. Let's calm down."
Yeah, I definitely stay away from that stuff. I try to keep, especially in these movies, keep it as lighthearted as possible. There are
Yeah,
things that are hinted at, I guess, or joked about,
Mhm.
even in Waning Poetic. But I'd rather joke about something than somebody had told me if they watched, like, they could have stopped 9/11. That is a different movie.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, at
that's
the end of the day,
deep.
at
Wow.
the end of the day, it's a comedy. You got to remember that. You know what I mean? So you got to
Exactly.
laugh. You can't be getting that heavy.
Right, exactly. No, it's always curious to me where we choose, like, I'll give you another example. With the cell phone conversations you guys have and all the social media interactions and putting your stuff out there publicly for everybody to see. I don't think I've ever written a book where a cell phone has been actively in use because it kills the plot for me, and then for you guys, it seems to help drive the plot quite a bit. So I guess was that obvious for you guys? Like the iPhone has to come into play in this as a plot point, and then the social media conversation kind of broadened out from there? Or was it like we're starting with the social media joke and now we can use the iPhone?
I think it's almost the elephant in the room. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You can't like leave out cell phones, right? Am I right, George? Like that'd be really hard to
Yeah.
do.
I mean,
Especially
it was kind of nice that it didn't factor into the whole story. It didn't have to ruin the plot; it just became part of it. But yeah,
Yes.
it's life.
Well, and that was the best part for me because when I am watching movies and there are things like that either writers, directors, whatever tend to overuse in a movie, I'm like, "Huh, that's great, but you focused on that and like the focus should have been somewhere else." I liked how it was sparse throughout
Mhm.
the movie. It was brought up, you circled back to it, but it wasn't the whole conversation about everything. Um, the one thing I have to ask, so I'm going to throw this out there. Um, with the review we did, and I know we sent you guys over the review, and um, I just was there anything that we were completely off base on in the review that like pop? I'm always curious, and it's funny because you guys we've done interviews with another director, another producer, but I don't even think they saw the reviews that we had done prior to the interview. So
Yeah, they
this
don't
is
care.
yeah. This is a first for us. So I'm really interested if you guys watched it and went, these fucking guys. Like one of one
well,
of those
I'll
things.
I'll, I'll say we're not Canadian, and
Like,
That's the first thing.
the lockers were not on purpose. But
I wish I could have said that. That's great. I
yeah,
didn't even think about that.
yeah.
I didn't really notice it. There's the one shot of Ryan, and at first, and when Ryan gets introduced and then he sits on the couch, I hadn't noticed it. The lockers are obviously in the background that whole time, but it's the one shot. It's just Ryan chest up, and the lockers are directly behind him. And it
Mm.
immediately, I was like, dude, those are like the lockers from You Can't Do That on Television. Like I haven't seen that show in 30 years,
I'm
40
surprised I
years.
didn't get that. I loved I loved that show. I haven't seen it since then either. But
But yeah,
I
that was
love
the
it.
that was
slime, right? You said slime, and you get
yeah,
slimed, and was
yep,
it just water and you got water? I
Yeah.
don't remember. It's just
yep,
those two, right? Yeah.
yep. Looking back now, wasn't the best show. I don't think any of those kids shows back then were that good. But as soon as I
It was
saw
good
those
for us, I guess.
lockers, oh yeah, it was great for us.
Yeah.
When I saw those lockers, it just triggered something in me as soon as I saw it. But
I wish I
yeah,
could. I wish I had planned that.
that,
That's
you
that would
could
have been
you
a
could
nice.
you could have just said it. It's fine.
It's
We can edit that out, right? We can
Yeah,
just
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
exactly.
should
we just
reshoot that.
redo
Me
it.
too.
Be like,
It's
yeah, of course. Huge Alanis Morissette fan.
What was it? The
uh,
Canadian thing, the lockers. Oh, there was one other thing. Actually, we mentioned it today when we were having coffee. I can't remember what the third one was. I was like, wait, what did they say?
uh,
Ah,
I don't
God, I
know.
should have wrote it down.
I don't know.
Was
It does go without saying, and most of our subscribers already know this, that we are completely full of shit
yeah, that's
and
fair.
know nothing about what we're really talking about.
everybody is. Don't worry.
We just we just do our best to try to be funny and entertaining. That's the goal at
That's
the
a
end of
good
the
thing.
day. Oh,
I
but
can't remember the other thing. There was one other thing that I can't remember. Yeah, it'll come to me someday.
yeah,
Oh, and
if you got
well, you know what? The one thing that you said they should have had the drug use scene. I'll say. So they talked about the drugs,
Oh,
but they didn't.
yeah.
yeah.
There's a logistical thing that the movie kind of happens in real time. If I had them all trying all those different drugs, they'd probably half be dead, and the rest of them would be
Oh, yeah,
not be able
yeah.
to go back to graduation.
You're 100% right. I just fantasize about doing a bunch of drugs in a circle with people, but that's how I want to go out. That's my own. That's my own Ryan movie.
that's
Cool.
I'm sorry.
Was that your high school? You hung out in the janitor's closet?
Pretty much. I got thrown in there by the bigger kids. I was never the biggest guy, but always had this mouth. So yeah, I got made. I got made a nice home in the janitor's closet and my lockers. Full of drugs and half written scripts now.
Nice.
So you guys have you said the movie's going to be premiering this summer sometime. Do you have for those, because we've actually had some people either comment to us or send us messages like, hey, when is it coming out? Where is it going to be available? Do you guys have any idea of like, hey, it'll be available here, or any time frames on when that'll happen?
We're kind of weighing
Yeah.
all the options here. We're gonna do. We were lucky enough to do pretty well with our screenings with Love Bro, so that's kind of it's gonna. I don't want to say it's gonna be in theaters soon, but we'll bounce around from a bunch of theaters and whatever
Select.
areas we can get into. So if you follow us, hopefully we'll. And if you have any theaters in your town that you think would show it, let us know. I'll try to reach out to them. But that for now, for the few months, Mike, I think we're gonna stick to some limited theatrical screenings and then
Yep.
go from there.
That's
Awesome.
fantastic. That's fantastic. And for our YouTube subscribers, real quick, before you start asking us to review It's Love Bro, we have the film. We're going to be reviewing it.
Thank you.
Do not comment that, because I'm not responding to you. I'm deleting your comment.
One of the actors in particular saw the review for Waning Poetic. He was like, "What the hell? You got to get to review It's Love Bro." Like, I got
Awesome.
you.
We'll be getting on that shortly. So
yes, and to whomever
you
that
might want to
actor
come
may
on here
be,
too.
we love you, and yes, you are welcome on here.
Yeah, anytime. Well, Corey, do you have any other outstanding questions?
I have so many questions, but none that are outstanding. They're just all going to bore the shit out of these guys about how do you write.
I dig it.
So
That's my question.
I'll let everybody off the hook, and no job requests from me today.
My favorite question at screenings is when they ask George, "How do you do it? Like, how do you write? And like, how do you like put pencil to paper, and then how do you get it from paper to screen?" That's my favorite question of all time, and he handles it so well too. He just, you can see him screaming in his brain. But
yeah. So, what's your answer? What is your canned answer for that question?
Oh God, it's been a while. I'm out of practice. It's been a month or two. No, it's I don't know. I spend a lot of time drinking a lot of coffee and telling Mike, I think we can.
I think it'll work. I think this will work.
Yeah.
We were talking about one this afternoon. I got it.
Sounds like my conversations with Corey.
Yeah, I feel like I'm actually interviewing the successful versions of Armando and I.
Well, don't say that. I wouldn't go that far.
It's a little bit of a kick in the
nuts. Don't go that far. Don't give us that much credit.
Oh, shit. Sorry, Mike. I think I'm you in this case. But anyway, yeah, I have nothing else. I'm going to let you guys off the hook, and I plan to have a lot more questions for you after we review It's Love Bro, and fully expect you guys on here to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll give the floor to you guys. If there's anything that you guys want to plug, obviously Waning Poetic will release this summer. But if there's anything else you guys want to plug, I'll give you guys the floor. You guys can plug the company, plug any upcoming movies. We can. We already touched on It's Love, Bro. So whatever you guys want to do.
Mike, you got the Horsetown coming up, right?
Yeah, the feature film that I did, Horsetown, is gonna be playing at it has some new screenings coming up. So if you follow Horsetown at Horsetown Movie on Instagram, there'll be some information on there. And that's about it.
Awesome.
Poetic movie, It's Love Bro movie, GMML Films, all those.
Yep.
Right One Productions. Don't forget about that one.
If you go to one, you'll wind up.
Yeah, you'll get
circle.
Oh,
so you'll circle back to everything.
You go down the rabbit hole pretty quickly.
Yeah, the GMML rabbit hole of just death.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Explains why we all get along.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll put down in the description and everything below. I'll have all the links to the social media stuff and where you guys can find all that stuff. So, but outside of that, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for reaching out. We love the movie. It's Love, Bro will be coming soon. So as soon as we get around to that here shortly, that'll be coming out. And any and all of the actors are welcome. So if any of them want to come on, that's the one thing we haven't had on the show yet is an actor. So we'd love to have any of them.
A couple of them already said they're interested. So we'll talk. We'll get some people.
Love it. Love it. As long as they don't come in character, because I will not interview Ella. I cannot.
No, Tommy's going to show up with the cigarette wrapped up in the white.
That
t-shirt.
is awesome. That would be rad.
Listen, me and Tommy will be back behind the dumpsters smoking a heater. That's what's going to happen. That's how that interview will happen.
You'll be listening to our conversations back there. What are these guys called?
Before we close this out, that was literally one of my favorite things. I think I said it in the review. That's the most Italian thing I've ever seen in my life. He didn't want to come out. He's like, I'm just going to listen to these guys over here. Let's see what kind of shit they're talking. That was fantastic. I appreciate it.
You gotta listen, keep your mouth shut sometimes, you know?
I loved it. It was perfect for the character.
I feel like when George just said you got to listen and keep your mouth shut sometimes, he was literally looking into my soul.
No.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll see you guys again soon. Have your people call our people, and we'll get everything straightened out.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Too.
Good night.